Let us hope that Mr. Potter will always be around to save the day.
Welcome to the Drag Malfoy podcast, made by the fans for the fans,
where we talk about fan films, fictions, and theories.
My name is Ivy.
And my name is Baron LeVay, and we are the Drag Malfoys.
On to the fan fiction.
Yes,
I'm going to take control of the fan fiction because we have realised our...
She's read more of it, essentially.
I've read more of it, yeah. Essentially, I did skim it, but I have read 60 chapters. So the fan fiction is called... So this was in, over the course of, 5 days? Yeah, 5 days I read 60 chapters. The fiction is called The Peace Not Promised by Tempest Kiro or Cairo, I'm not too sure.
I would say Kiro.
Kiro. On fanfiction.net. Again, everything will be linked below. It is 85 chapters long and 659 plus K words, but it's not finished yet.
Just so you know, folks, this was recommended by Christi.
Yeah.
So any hate goes to Christi for this.
So we did
I'm so sorry.
We tried our very best to read it all.
But before we start, I should throw some content warnings in there. If you are triggered by issues of abuse, child abuse, gender identity issues, then you should think about whether or not you want to read it.
Yeah, definitely. So it is a very long fan fiction, but it is beautifully written. So good. So I wrote my notes about 40 chapters in, so this is all kind of from memory of the pinpoints that I remember. We start the fiction completely started off with angst. We start with Snape's death, essentially. Straight in there, he makes it to the other side, and like Harry, Dumbledore is there to greet him. He has a bit of a back and forth with Dumbledore, and he's told that he has to change his regrets, and he is sent back in time, because that's believable magic, sent back in time.
Yes.
To his life as 6th year at Hogwarts. So he is living his life as a 38-year-old man, but as a 16-year-old boy.
Yes.
At Hogwarts. Lily is still alive. So that's a very integral part to this fanfiction.
Yes.
We realise that he has been put back to the time after Snape falls out with Lily. So we believe that he's called her a mudblood at this point, and she isn't speaking to him, and he was well on his way towards the path of darkness. Again, I've written here that the Marauders are nasty, nasty bullies, and it's good to see a fic showing this. It's so nice to see a fiction which shows the Marauders for who they actually were, instead of just the good guys, you know? So we meet people from Snape's past within Slytherin. So we meet Rosia and Avery, as well as Mulciber. I was going to say, am I saying that correctly? Mulciber. And then along with other backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was really struggling to continue reading it, I downloaded an app that was like text to speech, that really struggled with the pronunciations of anything. So it was Slytherin, it was Gryffindor, and it was Mulciber, and it was all of them. But I understood what it meant.
Yes, but Snape set out, so considering that Snape is a 16-year-old boy, but he has the mind of his previous life, Snape sets out on a path towards reforming his house and bringing unity to Hogwarts, which I really, really love. In the films and the books, Slytherin is always kind of pushed away to the side and thought, they're the evil house. That's fine. They can just be loners. And
but Snape in the franchise as a professor wanted to bring the house together. This is essentially what he wanted to do as a professor, that he started to do as a student in this fic.
Yeah, exactly. And he starts out kind of on this task by shown people that he's a very strong wizard. And because although he's 16 in the fiction, he's 38 mentally. So he does keep that magical ability that he's learned over the years.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
This is very, very brief. I don't know how many chapters we are in right now, but he has a fight with Mulciber at the entrance hall, so everyone can see. Everyone can see, and it's going to be gossiped around the school. I think he at this point he does, and he defeats Mulciber in a way, like he doesn't harm him, but he causes humiliation, which is enough within the Slytherin.
Yeah, words are a lot within Slytherin. You don't need to fully go out with the actions.
Yeah. He just kind of like leg locking curse. He does that, and then he says some stuff.
I know it's hard to condense all of that into like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh my god,
85 chapters.
85 chapters, long. Yeah. So this is all I'm about to say is going to be condensed into about 4 pages of notes, which is 60 chapters. So at this point, Lily's still not talking to him. She hears about what's happened, and she's like, "Oh well, like the thing among Slytherins, because apparently Slytherins keep themselves to themselves," which is again kind of true, but it's not usual to hear about a fight between 2 Slytherins. It's usually Slytherins against another house.
Yeah, they keep all of their things very close, play them close to the chest. Yeah.
Because of how Snape was in the franchise.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Slytherins respected Slytherins.
Yeah. At this point, I have time skipped a little bit, but backtracking, when Snape arrived in his 16-year-old form, Dumbledore had given him some memories, which was his own, so Dumbledore's own memories, which would allow the past Dumbledore to believe Snape for who he really was.
Manipulative as ever.
Always pulling the strings.
Yeah. At this point, Snape has begun to see Dumbledore. I wrote, Death Dumbledore gave Snape memories, so this Dumbledore would trust him.
Death
Dumbledore.
Accurate. Yeah.
And they would get a head start with Baldy and the First Wizarding War.
Yes.
Again, Snape is obviously, because he's from his past life, he knows exactly what's going on with school. He's finding his lessons very boring. Dumbledore then says, "Oh, why don't you do alchemy?" Gifts Severus with an alchemy kit, which is very expensive.
This is the part of the fanfiction that I found really interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I loved this aspect because the Nicholas Flamel side of it, plus the whole alchemy. As a pagan, I respect the elements, and I think the addition with the alchemy there was really fascinating for me.
And it was something he didn't know. It was like a side that Snape had to learn.
And the struggle that he had during the course of the fan fiction was actually real struggle.
Yeah.
Like he was struggling to, because potioneering, I think, is very, this goes this and this logic. And this and this.
Yes.
Whereas alchemy is more of like, you need a memory, and to figure out what kind of memory he needed, and to interpret each stone's, I want to say property, but it's not really property.
No, I'm following. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Work out exactly what he needed to do with
each stone has a different
yeah,
I really can't think of the word, but for example, copper was purity. Silver is I can't remember.
I should know this.
Something similar. It was something like purity, a different aspect of a person's life experiences. And Snape kind of took that to literal thinking. But in reality, when he used a different memory for his first creation of a copper focus stone, he used something different and it created it perfectly. So he kind of learns to kind of think outside the box maybe a little bit.
Of course he does, because that's what he does. He creates spells. That's what he did from the beginning of the franchise.
Yeah. So Snape is given lessons in alchemy with the one and only Nicholas Flamel, who is, as we know, the creator of the Philosopher's Stone. He is not the best at transfiguration, because I believe you need outstanding in transfiguration to be able to study alchemy. However, Dumbledore's like, it's fine, whatever. And he does struggle with alchemy for a long time before he finally gets the grips of it. It is mentioned within the fiction that he wants to transfigure something into basilisk venom.
Yes. Oh no, all right, I wrote this. No, I didn't. Never mind.
Well, he wants to transfigure something into basilisk venom, so we are knowing that he is doing this solely for the purpose of trying to find the Horcruxes.
Okay, so that was one of the last things that I actually remember reading about this fanfiction.
Yeah.
So Dumbledore tries to convince him to transfigure something into basilisk of venom because he's actually worked with basilisk venom before.
Yeah.
Whereas Dumbledore, who is an alchemy master, has never worked with basilisk venom before.
Even though there's a basilisk in Hogwarts' grounds, but sure, okay.
Yeah, well, suspension of disbelief. It's fine.
Yes, absolutely.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's a lengthy one to get into, and like you said, like I discovered it. I think I'd said chapter 30, but maybe it was chapter 40. I don't remember. And I read it like over the course of several weeks until I'd gotten caught up to where she was, and then would just read it as kind of like my before I went to bed or something kind of thing. But yeah, it's like 2017 is when she wrote it, and I think I found it in 2018, and then so I'm currently. Actually, I'm caught up currently with where she is, which is beautifully written. I can tell she has not had the ability of having her readers. She has critique partners that help her, and hasn't had those with the pandemic going on. So, but still, beautifully written.
I have every intention of continuing the fan fiction. I'm not going to dispel it now that we've finished this one because I've actually really enjoyed it.
I would like to go back and reread fully because I was just skimming it at this point to try and like get all the information in, but I will go back and
and it's if you like I would one, you have to like long fiction, but if you do like a sort of tortured Snape, this does provide that in his process of trying to reconcile the two parts of him. It also does show you what life was like for him at Hogwarts originally, and it definitely talks about his bad home life and actually where he wakes up in bed having the wounds on his back from his father.
I was going to discuss this, that there were many comments, because I like to also read the comments to see that I haven't missed an idea that someone else may have missed. So there were lots of comments that suggested that this was too much in the realms of so there was one review in particular that suggested that the author had gone too much into abuse and they'd glorified abuse, but actually I feel like it's quite canonical in the fact that do we know that Snape had a single relationship that wasn't abusive? I don't think we do. I think that's very canon.
That is true. That is very true.
I agree. And I mean, we don't know for sure if it was physical, but I feel like that was very likely. But we know at least it was emotionally and neglect and all. So it is tough to get through, but it does give you an understanding of where his mental state was and how strong he actually had to be to overcome what he did. So if you like that part of Snape, I like having the older memories. And honestly, she did it well, because it sounds a little weird and a little creepy to be 16, 30, but she did it in a very, I guess, well done way. The alchemy was well done. And the one part I've been intrigued by is this, when he uses one stone and it shows kind of him for actually who he is, which is the Snape that we know at the age that we know. And it's something she's still running with and has not come to any kind of, I don't know what direction she's going to come, but I'm crossing my fingers because I don't know why I want that, but I want that to be revealed.
I'm following. So I think that what I've written that I feel like it is incredibly heavy, but I feel like you personally have developed a lot of inspiration from it, clearly, in your cosplays and your TikToks. I think it's been very indicative of what you've done as Snape as well. Yeah.
It's good to see that he didn't exactly turn out like his dad as well. His dad was clearly very violent.
I don't like that. Well, some people think he was obsessive and creepy, and some people don't think he was. And, and it's like people will argue back and forth. But what I do also argue with people is that I don't think that people say, well, he was just a bully, and I actually don't. I don't subscribe to the bully thing because he
No,
knows what a
me
bully
neither.
is. He knows what an actual bully is. And, but what he is a tough, it's tough. He wants you tough. I tell people on live all the time, he thought Harry was weak. He was relying on his celebrity status. How was this kid ever going to go to face Voldemort?
He entered this wizarding world and he was kind of given everything on a plate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, here you go. And
oh, you're Harry Potter. Oh,
my
amazing.
God, yeah. And
Yeah.
he didn't have to work for his status, whereas Snape kind of did.
Yeah, he was tough love. He was tough love with his Slytherins as well, I think, but I don't equate that. Even with Neville, I just think he hated weakness. And when he saw it in the students, he was bound and determined to get rid of it. And if it meant he had to be the bad guy and be mean, then he was going to do it, because weakness equated death or danger or, defeat. And he saw everyone else at Hogwarts as being too coddling with these kids.
Oh,
And-
100%.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it last episode, the theory that Neville's boggart was Snape. But that's because that's what Neville was the most scared of at that point, because he was at school. Grew up, it would have developed into something else, I'm sure.
Yep. So Snape in this fan fiction even wins a gold medal for his services to the subject of alchemy, as he invents a new way of doing things. Usually in alchemy, it's one hand wand and then one hand wandless, but Snape invents a way to do it with just a wand. That's all I wrote on the subject. I couldn't remember anything else. So out of a long list of fights that go down, the Marauders target Snape again after he's coming out of alchemy. So alchemy is taught on the 7th floor, which is, of course, near the Gryffindor Tower. So they believe that Snape is just there to terrorize Lily. I wrote in capital letters, horrible people. And they have this big fight, and Snape struggles a little bit at first because he's bound, sort of like Patricus Totalis kind of situation. He can't speak / move, yet he manages to free himself without the use of his wand.
Langlock, yes.
Yeah, Langlock, yeah. He's free himself without the use of his wand or his mouth, which is again a very powerful wizard. He announces, so by this point there's a crowd that's been gathered, and again, even though it says in the fiction that Snape doesn't really like a crowd, I think he needed a crowd to kind of sit. Because again, he's trying to force his house. It's like Slytherins, again, are subjected to the point where everyone's like, you're going to be a Death Eater.
Yes.
That's not always the case, but Snape wants to change that. He says out loud in front of this crowd, in front of the Marauders, I will never be a Death Eater. And at this point, he has united the house a little bit after making the pep talk after his fight with Mulciber, because he had a fight with Mulciber, and this is the final move to show that his house didn't need to go the way that society had already pushed them the way to go. Yes. We enter a new kind of perspective where Lily hears this. And finally goes out to find Snape. She borrows the Marauders map from the Marauders.
And they allow it. That's the thing. They allow it.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, okay, you can have
because they're confused as well at this point. They've fully believed up until this point that Snape was going to be a Death Eater. He was going to be on the wrong side. And they're like, all right, okay, sure. So she goes and finds him, even though James and Sirius don't like the fact that she's going alone. She goes and finds him.
I mean, they could have kept the map. She could have checked where he was, and then they could have kept the map and then seen where she was going and ensured that there was no one else there. But they didn't. They trusted her.
Yeah, exactly. And so she finds Snape and they have a talk, and she's like, is it true? Are you not going to be a Death Eater? And I think that was the turning point which Lily was waiting for, was I'm not going to be a Death Eater. And they make up. Lily gives a hug, and it's so sweet. It's so nice.
They spend all night talking.
All night.
No sleep whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he explains everything, I think. If I remember rightly, he explains everything. He talks about everything. Yeah.
He does. Apart from the fact that he's coming from past life.
He didn't share that part, but he does open up with her in the way he never did in his previous life.
Yeah. Until he has a weekly meeting with Dumbledore, and Dumbledore has been they've been looking at Snape's past memories, and Snape decides that it's a brilliant idea to get a little bit agitated. I forgot what he got agitated about, but he did leave the office as Lily was passing, and Lily was like, "What am I going to do? Am I going to go after Snape?"
Full manipulation here.
Fully.
Yeah.
So she decides to go and see Dumbledore instead of Snape. Don't know why. And she finds Dumbledore gone, with Fawkes gone as well, and the pensieve is still out.
Oh no! And what did she do?
She finds the memories.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course she does.
And she looks at them, of course, because
Why wouldn't you? Of course you would.
curiosity.
Gryffindor.
And again, this is the end of the chapter, I believe, that Snape finds her looking at the memories. There is a shoulder that grabs her and pulls her back, and
Dun, dun, dun.
she's all very confused and like, what's going on? I actually wrote as one of my notes was, for fuck's sake, Dumbledore, because Dumbledore's the one that left them out.
He's ever manipulating, even when he's not meaning to, except I think he's always meaning to.
I fully believe. Well, he actually said later on that he intended to leave the
did he?
memories there
See, I didn't get that
because
far.
he hoped Snape would go back
Okay, yeah.
and see them.
Okay.
However, so they chat about it. Snape calms down a little bit. He tells her everything, even how old he is mentally. So he's like, I'm 38 lol.
I'm 38 long.
He's 38 lol. He shows her his Patronus, which is a doll.
Oh.
It's such a lovely moment, isn't it? And she wants him to teach her the Patronus charm because I think he said that his Patronus is the same as hers, a doll. Whether that is Lily's Patronus living within his heart, or it's actually his Patronus, we don't know. There is fan theories about this.
Oh yes.
So I think there's a bit of a time skip. They go outside towards the lake and they go and teach the Patronus. But at this point, it's winter in Hogwarts, so the snow is really high up. So they melt an area and they think they're safe. The Marauders show up, don't they? Because of course they're probably looking for that. There's a bit of an altercation, and then Lily goes, "I choose Snape."
The drama.
This is where the entire fiction is kind of turned upside down.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, it does.
I don't know if it's that evening or if it's in a couple of evenings later. However, Snape asks Lily to go to Dumbledore's office with him. And he goes to Dumbledore, he's like, she knows. And Lily's just like, what?
You're right, yeah, I know.
It's like, yeah.
I must also add that she's Northern in this fiction, and we really appreciate this. She's Northern British. So it makes us feel good.
Yeah, we've never have we ever.
No, it's always been either Scottish or London.
It's true. Yeah.
Essentially, it would have been wrong because there've been wizards all up and down the UK. But it makes us feel good. It makes us feel very good that a northern representation.
Yeah, I understand that.
Because essentially, like, I'm not very good at accents anyway, so if we're planning on doing a fan film, we're planning on doing a fan film and about the Malfoys, and I'm like, I'm not very good at accents, but
I'm all right. I'm not too bad.
I can try. I can do a posh accent, but if the northern slips out,
the northern will slip out.
The northern will slip out. So yeah, Snape tells Dumbledore that Lily knows, and Snape knows at this point that he needs to obliviate Lily. She's very hesitant. However, Snape's like, look, Voldemort is a very, very skilled legitimate, and he is, it would just
Snape knows
far
this.
too dangerous.
Absolutely knows.
It was a possibility that Voldemort could penetrate Lily's mind and find out all this stuff. So she agrees. Before he obliviates her, she goes, make me fall in love with you.
Oh, such a beautiful moment. I literally, as I got to that moment, I sent Ivy a message going, "Make me fall in love with you." And I was like, "Oh no!"
That's the only message I got was in capital letters, "Make me fall in love with you," and I was like,
"Oh, killed me."
Yeah.
And he lovingly decides to store her memories in a vial, a beautiful vial, but puts charms around it so no one can open it until he can, or show Lily it, essentially. I don't know if it got that far in the fiction, because I've only read 60 chapters. But yeah. He agrees again, and Lily's birthday comes around, her 17th birthday, and Snape gifts her the vial, but it's got loads of charms around it, and she can't see what's inside it. But it's also a charm, which is the door.
It was the Patronus, the Dole Patronus in the vial. It was beautiful. It was such a beautiful moment.
So stunning, and I think that's when he says that he loves her.
Yeah.
Without those memories there, and one thing leads to another, and they end up and they end up together somehow. And this is where it gets interesting. James ends up with Marlene.
Ooh,
which we know. Isn't it Marlene ends up with Sirius at some point?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lily finally masters her Patronus. Oof. And she's like, obviously dog and all of that kind of stuff. I've also got written here, Snape's Patronus equals Lily's, but we'll look into that later with the fan theories. Again, Regulus Black has got his dark mark at this moment.
Oh.
He has been, so Snape pulls his sleeve up and...
Notice I subconsciously pulled my sleeves up there.
Snape pulls his sleeve up and there's a dark mark there. Obviously, at that period of time, no one really knows what that meant, but Snape knew what that meant.
Yeah.
Lily manages to convince Severus, this is a totally different point, but Lily must convince Severus to brew Wolfsbane.
Yes.
Lupin.
Which obviously didn't exist in this point. It was still being created.
It was, yeah. And he had managed to reduce it to a 40-day brew to an 18-day brew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's a very skilled wizard.
Yep. And Lily's basically like, do it for me, because he was not willing to do it for Lupin at all, because
but obviously
he's part of the Marauders, you know.
Yep.
Snape, Lily is basically like, do it for me, and Snape was like, always.
Always.
Of course.
Surprise, surprise, they get engaged after Snape meets Lily's dad.
So, right, you've gone past, I've read now, so, right, okay.
Okay, right.
Everything from here is new to me.
Brilliant. With the comment that you mentioned about the abuse, it does get a little bit more intense the further you read on into it. However,
again, like I said before we started this, is Severus Snape, does Severus Snape have relationships at all canonically that aren't abusive? I'm not sure that is, even as far as Dumbledore is concerned, I'm not sure that we can say that.
Yeah, he doesn't really know. He doesn't know anything outside of these unhealthy relationships. He has no basis at all.
It's a big thing essentially for him to learn about it as well. He's learning these new experiences where not everything has to be
abusive.
Bad. Yeah. Everything has to be bad. Yeah. So we know of Snape's parents being very abusive, as for the start of the fic, he has gashes on his back. But Snape, at this point, from Dumbledore, has been tasked with reuniting his grandfather with his mum.
Oh.
Yeah. So he does do this. He goes and sees his grandfather. I didn't understand it at first. It was a very brief moment, and I was like, is he going to do it? Is he not going to do it? But essentially, we do see later on in the fiction that Lord Prince, as they call him, Lord Prince goes and visits Eileen, Snape's mother, at their home, and Snape at this point has went to go see, and Lily follows, because there is an altercation between Lily's dad and Snape, where Lily's dad kind of takes things a little bit too far, and Snape doesn't want to get aggressive, so he kind of runs off. Lily runs after him about 2 minutes later, and she's there while Lord Prince is there speaking to his mother, and they invite them both in. Lord Prince kind of knows immediately that Lily's a muggle born, and it's like, is this the life that you've chosen? Blah, blah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's bad. And then Snape's mother leaves with the grandfather as if to restore that life that she once had. Like, she kind of regrets the life that she chose with the
Okay,
muggle.
understandable maybe, yeah.
After Eileen has left with Lord Prince, Snape's dad comes back and starts getting kind of like violent almost immediately. He's like, oh, who are you? You're a very pretty girl. Like, what has my son like done to you to make you be here? Kind of situation. And it's very, very violent. Very quickly, the dad ends up slapping Lily across the face because she's trying to stop the fight between Snape and his dad. And then Snape uses Sectum Sempra on his dad. Then he gets Lily out, and Snape is on the street, kind of like outside, and Lily's like, you better fix this now. So after all that he did to Lily, Lily's still like, you need to fix this. You need to fix this.
Yeah.
He does, but then he kind of gets kicked out of his own home because of it, without anything. Like, he leaves without his trunk, without his Hogwarts supplies, clothes, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But he does end up getting them back. Because,
Oh, that's good, because you didn't have anything anyway.
yeah, he doesn't. He like rags that he used from his first years as well. So. But he does end up getting them back because his dad goes out for his pension or whatever. Anyway, so they jump to the start of the 7th year, and Snape is head boy.
Oh,
Yes.
that's interesting. I like that.
Dumbledore's when this is head boy territory, and. They get engaged. Snape and Lily get engaged.
No, really?
Yeah,
It happens.
It does
Oh,
happen.
that's exciting.
And it happens quite quickly. I was just like, oh, okay, that happened. Snape uses part of his silver that he created during alchemy to make a ring.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, it's really nice. And then Lily does the same, makes a ring out of some silver and then enchants them so they know that each other is nearby.
Oh,
And
that's
they wear the
really
ring.
sweet.
It's really, really cute.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It's very fluffy.
Yeah, very much fluff.
Petunia gets married to Dursley.
What?
Yeah. Petunia is a kind of a secondary character in this. She gets engaged, gets married to Dursley.
What?
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
No, it's just a background thing. So they get married. Christmas break comes around, and boom, Lily's dad is dead.
Right, okay, I'm following. Never mind.
Lily's dad dies just before Christmas break. So Severus and Lily leave early to attend the funeral, which Petunia has organised without saying anything.
Okay.
So it was almost as if Petunia was trying to make Lily miss it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they go to the funeral. Everything's so like until Snape comes to start cooking, because he's like, "Oh, I'll cook dinner."
Because as we know from every fan fiction ever written, that potions is very much like cooking.
And he turns around and he finds Lily and Petunia like laughing, and they're getting along for some reason. Mainly because probably the dad died and they're remembering the good times. But that's the tea. And later on in the fiction, they get married. They get married before Christmas holidays are over.
Oh, that's cute.
It is very cute. It's a very simple wedding. They go to a church in a Scottish wizarding town.
Okay, so I can see that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And as Snape promised to Lily's father, he waits until the wedding night until he deflowers her as
Deflowers.
Okay,
yeah.
We'll say that in a nice teen rated kind of way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
As an English person, I appreciate that.
So they end up back at Hogwarts, and Lily kind of admits to her friends, and her friends are like, "What? But you're a very pretty girl, and you're with Severus," and yeah.
They've been like that throughout the entire thing, and that
been
makes
like
me sad.
It does, because it kind of like subjects the Gryffindors to kind of see only outwards beauty.
Yeah, the Gryffindors are the mean girls, and that makes me sad because surely not every Gryffindor was a pretty girl.
Right.
Yeah. Again, I've written, nothing can ever be serene and calm at Hogwarts, as the threat of the Chamber of Secrets opening as Hagrid's cockerels are being killed again.
Mm-hmm.
Mood.
Yeah. Rosia and Avery at the bottom of this, as Rosia seems to come out of Filch's cupboard of confiscated things.
Okay.
And Snape kind of corners Rosia, and Rosia goes, "You'll see soon enough," something or other like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that Avery has been possessed by Voldemort and has opened the Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Obviously, this is a very brief description. This is
Yeah. I really like reading this now.
The diary was in Hogwarts. We believe, I believe anyway, that the diary is what was stolen from Filch's office.
Mm-hmm.
That Rosia hid it there, Avery took it, and that's what possessed Avery.
Mm-hmm.
Snape uses the deadly focus. So Snape at this point has used a memory from his past life to create a focus stone.
Right.
And that has created a focus stone that's not ever been seen before.
Okay.
So whenever he holds it, all his entire world goes black and white.
Oh.
And any life force is seen as this intense light.
Okay, I'm kind of following. Okay.
Yeah. So he uses this focus stone, this specific focus stone, in his own hand to kill the Horcrux within the diary, I believe.
Okay.
I
More or
believe.
less. Yeah.
More
Yeah.
or less, that's what's happened. Yeah.
Yeah. He defeats the basilisk. Yeah.
He does. He kills the basilisk as well. So the basilisk ends up within the entrance hall or on the stairs.
Okay.
And Snape defeats it. He blinds it with some fire, and then I think he defeats it with fire because there is mention of like this smell of a burned flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't hate that. However, from a pagan aspect, the smell of burnt flesh / smell of sulfur comes from a demonic entity also.
That could also work with the possession. With the possession of Voldemort against Avery. And obviously at this point Avery is not a very prominent character. He's on the path towards being a Death Eater, but it is mentioned in the fiction that he's not a prominent Death Eater figure. He's not within the inner circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
They graduate and are residing in the Leaky Cauldron, and Lily has sold her family home because her father left the house in Lily's name, but Lily sold it to make some money because Snape's poor as fuck. And Snape is poor, and so is she at this point. Snape now takes the job as Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts.
No.
He does.
For a year?
For a year. He literally, the contract is for a year.
No.
For 1 year. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a guess. Okay.
It was, yeah, he said he knows the position is jinxed.
Okay.
So he's like, I'm going to take it as a position for the year.
Headcanon, yeah.
Headcanon, yeah. And Lily has taken a position at an enchanted trinket shop because she's very, very, very skilled at charms at this point. She can cast them wordlessly and wandlessly.
Lovely.
At the same time.
Fantastic.
Dumbledore gives them both his old home to live in, and which is really, really
That's interesting.
Lovely. Yeah.
I mean, you think it's cute. I think it's interesting.
Like,
I feel like there's manipulation in there, but okay.
Yes.
There is going to be some
holding him close. He's still holding him close.
During this time, Marlene comes over and tells Lily about the Order of the Phoenix. By this point, the Order has been mentioned, but Snape has, towards Lily, has been like, no, you are not doing it. I need you to be safe. I need you to be alive. Because I think that's what he thinks in his mind is his ultimate regret is letting Lily die.
Yes.
because I think in this fiction his ultimate regret is turning to the dark side, but what's history's history, you know.
Oh, I disagree. I think it's Lily's death.
Okay, fair.
But that's okay. We're allowed to disagree.
Yeah, exactly.
And it explains some of his, you know, they always talk about how he was very possessive towards Lily, or very, you know, and it shows that again, but like the reason for it, like in his mind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I feel like sometimes maybe he would have, his regrets were
lessened.
Yeah, his regrets were lessened when he told the Marauders that he wasn't going to be defeated, that he chose the light over the...
Yes.
So they graduate, and obviously, oh wait, no, I've already said that.
Yeah, you've done that.
Marlene comes over and tells Lily about the order. Lily wants to join, but obviously Snape has told her not to, and even Snape has went behind her back and said to Dumbledore, don't let her join.
Yeah.
But Lily breaks her promise when she said she wouldn't, and she goes against him anyway and joins the meeting. Ooh. Wait for it. Dumbledore comes along. He comes along to this meeting, and who else does he bring along to this meeting other than Severus himself?
Oh, manipulative bastard.
So Lily is there and Severus is there, both on opposite sides of the room. The glare is real. There's a big fight that happens as soon as Severus and Lily gets home, but there's not much past that. It kind of, the chapter ends with the fight and then kind of goes into it. We believe that Lily is when, okay, yeah, I won't be involved, because that's what I get from the fiction. They have the Order training at Hogwarts, and Moody, who is prominent in training these new graduates to be part of the Order, suspects Snape to be a Death Eater because he is so good at dueling.
I mean, is that a reason to suspect someone?
Well, he does take Snape into Snape's office, or Snape's future office at this point. And Snape admits that he goes, they trained me. So in his past life, before we joined him at the age of 16, between his 5th year and 6th year, Snape actually went and joined the Death Eaters for a short trial, but then decided it wasn't for him.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is all I've read up to.
Yeah, I mean, you did good, because it just from there it continues on with this leading into the Wizarding War, the Order of the Phoenix. Obviously, Lily is not going to be sidelined, and she ends up with a new task. And I think it's good because they kept her from being one-dimensional and showed her well. Like she's trying to be a good wife to her husband. She understands where he's coming from, his difficulties, but at the same time, she's being her own person and trying to figure out how to navigate. She even talks about her Gryffindor sensibilities. And so it was good to see a Gryffindor struggling with her own Gryffindor-ness.
Yeah.
Because she's very easily a very flat character. So I think they did a good job. And also with just Snape struggling to reconcile himself and to watch him slowly choosing different options each time. But he doesn't want to be a professor. He is adamant about it. He does not want that life that he had before, and he bucks against that entire system. And it's fun to sort of watch things happen just against his will in this fan fiction as it's going on. And he still keeps that sense of, I have a duty, and I'm loyal to Dumbledore. And so that stays very much intact in a lot of his decision-making as the fan fiction goes on. So it's deep, it gets wordy and lengthy. I skip over some of it when it gets too wordy, but it's wonderful for just another perspective of what's going on in his brain, more from his point of view. So
I think what's really, really, really nice area to mention, especially to our listeners who are LGBT, one of the Slytherin students, Urquhart, I'm not too sure, is found out that, so there was an altercation at some point within the girls' bathrooms or something or other. Mulciber, Lester, and Urquhart, who are all Slytherins, Urquhart and Lester are kind of like background Slytherins at this point. I don't know how it or why it came about. It was never told why they decided to do this. But they decided to use Polyjuice Potion to make Leicester into Urquhart, but then Leicester, grew breasts, and then it turns out that Urquhart was actually trans in the story, which is a really, really lovely storyline.
For anyone who is struggling at the moment with anything that is being said about the franchise, I think it's quite important to note that not everyone who follows the franchise believes in that.
Yeah, definitely. And they actually mentioned, I think, that the Sorting Hat sort them into Slytherin, but also sort them into the boys' dormitory, even though their name on the list was female inclined. And then Dumbledore had a meeting with them that day, and they managed to choose the name Sebastian, which was really, really lovely, I believe, in that sense, that the Sorting Hat could feel in their heart that they weren't the gender that they were born.
I think that also links to our previous episode in which we discussed whether or not the Sorting Hat could detect that Voldemort was dark in heart.
Yeah.
If it can detect someone's gender in heart, then maybe it could really detect whether or not someone was going to be a really dark wizard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different areas that this kind of delves into for a lot of different people and different things. So, but that's why fan fiction is fan fiction. It allows people to kind of say and do, from their perspective and what they're thinking. So, I've enjoyed it so far, and I'll keep reading, mainly because I just want to see if this focus stone is going to come back to bite Severus in the butt. That is my main thing I keep waiting for. So yeah,
we're going to continue reading it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not usually my typical ship.
Yeah,
but we're definitely going to continue reading it.
Yeah, definitely. It's about. I am going to go back to the point where I stopped reading and started skim reading and start reading it.
I kind of do that a lot. I skim, then I focus. I skim, then I focus. But
yeah, 100%.
If there's anything that catches my eye and I'm like, oh wait, what's this? I'll read it. Yeah.
Right.
So what we finish on is fan theories.
Yes.
These are usually my favourite areas. And I'm going to go straight in with my favourite, Severus Snape fan theory, because I have read pretty much every fan fiction that could have ever been written on this fan theory, and is that Severus Snape is a vampire. And we know that JK has disagreed with this since this fan theory has appeared, but we have moments throughout the actual franchise that suggest that this is the thing. We have Snape suggesting Snape setting assignments for the students on werewolves, and we have Lupin setting assignments on vampires.
Yes.
Several moments where the students make comments about his bat-like appearance. Living in the dungeons, and honestly, I completely subscribe to this fan theory. I live for it. I think it's perfect.
I agree. I don't write a lot of fan fiction because I really don't have time. I'm writing for my living, but I did write like a very, very short piece on Severus vampire fanfic with him talking to Minerva, and he had been kind of without sustenance for a while. And just because he's such a character of such clamped down, tight self-control, and I think that leads itself into that kind of theory anyway, that he's got to keep everything on total lockdown, or he will. Yeah, it'll be scary. So, I think it's fun. I think I always thought that if he did have a Patronus before the doe, it would have been a bat. That's my thought. I love those. I love that theory.
I also have a fan theory that, so we have the Deathly Hallows, and Snape is the Stone brother.
I read this.
Yeah. His grief over Lily's death is the main thing. But we also have that Voldemort is the Wand brother, Harry is the Cloak brother, and Dumbledore is Death. So JK has actually said that she enjoys this theory.
We've discussed Dumbledore's death.
Yeah, we've discussed Dumbledore's death. But yeah, that's a theory that I quite enjoy.
That one's a fun one. I was going through kind of finding my favorite ones. I mean, some are the obvious ones, but one that I hadn't read until recently was that the fact that Harry was a Horcrux amplified Snape's behavior every time he was around him, because it brings out the worst in people. And I thought, well, if you think about how the Dursleys treated him, if you think about how Sirius became overly reckless when he was around him, it was very interesting. That was a new one to me.
I like that one as well. We discussed it very briefly last episode, but in regards to Voldemort as opposed to Snape. But I agree with that one. I like that one. My next one is that Snape is the only Death Eater capable of producing a Patronus. So this interests me because we don't actually know. Like, obviously, doing cosplays of the Malfoys, we know what is written about the Malfoys, but there is no known Patronus. But they definitely experienced love. There was definitely love in that family.
I believe there was some happiness as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think we can necessarily say that Snape was the only Death Eater to be able to produce a Patronus. But because of his love for Lily, it was probably a very strong Patronus. And we know that it was a very difficult spell to produce anyway. And we know that, again, he's one of the most powerful wizards of his time.
And it says most wizards cannot do it. We know that's a fact. And then we know that the ones that can, the majority of them only can produce an incorporeal one, not an actual physical one. So maybe if the Malfoys could, I don't think we ever get record that it was something corporeal that they could do. We do know that Umbridge could produce one, but she's not a Death Eater. And I think that she does have happy thoughts about things, especially her.
An incredible villain.
And
happy thoughts or something completely different what other people
cats make her happy, and that she honestly what she thought she was doing, or what she was doing, she thought was good. So I can see
villain.
But I wonder, I always go back and forth on it, so if Severus could produce this very, very strong Patronus, either there's two things. It's one, he couldn't produce that Patronus until after Lily's death, and he had truly changed sides, which shows you that he really changed sides, or he was never truly a Death Eater in his heart, and you kind of go back and forth between which two might it be.
100%.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
I love that.
Written down that Snape's first word to Harry was a hidden apology. So his first words to Harry were, "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" So according to Victorian flower language, asphodel is a type of lily, which means my regrets follow you to the grave. And wormwood means absence or bitter sorrow, which combined means I bitterly regret Lily's death.
So, as someone who is pagan, who understands floral mythology, it's not fully what we discuss as Victorian flower language. But it is very similar. So yes, lilies represent death. Which was probably a choice on JK's behalf, because I know that she was very clever in naming everyone, everything as far as the Latin words are concerned. She was very clever with it, absolutely.
Fully.
So I think that Lily was probably a deliberate choice in that way. So Lily represents death, and asphodel is a type of lily, absolutely. So wormwood represents absence. Rather than expressing sorrow, it's very much from a pagan aspect, it's very much a case of I miss you. Which is again very much in line with I regret your mother's death, or I miss you, because he's looking at his mother's eyes.
He is looking at his one.
I don't think Snape ever spoke anything that didn't have meaning or purpose. And of course, we know that he would have known everything about flowers, being a potioneer and a potions master. I don't think that is too contrived to think it was his way of apologizing without, especially when you look at some of the quotes he had in Cursed Child about how he may have grown to believe in her cause. after her death, and it went beyond just protecting her son. But I also think that leads into the next fan theory that I always love, which is his very specific words spoken that first year to Harry, which of course everybody knows this about the Snape avoided death at the end, because he mentioned two things. He drilled Harry Potter on two things right there that first year. One was the ingredients for the sleeping potion that created a resemblance of death so strong that people thought the person was dead. And then two, the Bezoar, the stone to save you from most poisons. I feel that a potions master of his high caliber would never have gone to meet Voldemort in any way without adequate protection. And knew that Nagini had been very close to him for quite a while. I find it so out of character, unless he had just literally given up hope, to just go quietly into the great beyond. So I definitely subscribe to the theory that he's off on an island somewhere, now that his duties have been accomplished.
This is a theme that we were talking about before the call as well.
Like, I literally only read, because most of my fan fictions that I read are Snape centric, and most of the fan fictions that I read are Snape after Nagini, because it would seem that no one believes he actually died, because it's not
he's such a strong potions master that you would have them ingredients.
And then there's the link to the Elder Wand as well, in the
why the Elder Wand failed Voldemort in the first place, because
maybe Snape didn't die.
But also thought of that the Elder Wand belonged to Draco.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Draco was the one to disarm Dumbledore in the first place.
Yeah.
But there's also the theory that, if we go back to Fantastic Beasts, that the Elder Wand didn't even belong to Dumbledore in the first place. Because Queenie somehow... I've only watched the film once, by the way, guys, so don't come for me. But Queenie somehow managed to take control of the Elder Wand.
Yeah.
The tie-ins between the Fantastic Beast and some things are interesting, definitely.
Yes,
absolutely. Yes. I think there's a lot to go into, 100%.
Definitely.
And I think that's all we've got time for. So that goes into our final minutes here with Christi J. Whitney. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here with us, the Drag Malfoy podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying yes, essentially.
Thank you for inviting me, and you guys know I always love to talk all things Snape and Harry Potter, and I just love the fandom because it's just so broad and so big, and I think that we can just love to delve into characters, agree or disagree, or enlighten each other on things that we hadn't even noticed before. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
So yes, thank you for from us and from all of our audience, and I'm sure all of your audience who will probably join us.
Yeah.
Because we're not naive enough to think that it's just going to be our audience to join us for this.
Next week we are going to be talking about the Battle of Hogwarts.
Oh,
which is going to be interesting.
Nice broad story there.
Very broad. We're going to see, so we've got the fan film to watch. We're going to see who the main character of the fan film is, and then we'll find a fan fiction to go find us that.
Absolutely. So thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you next time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.